Times we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? I'm turning off my... That's it. I turned it off and I was already cold. Sorry, if you hear the heater in the background, I get cold very easily. I'm still a Florida girl at heart. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know I haven't listened to this show at all. I just downloaded it. I haven't listened to anyone else's show about this show. I may do follow-up shows on this. Let's milk this cow until its teats are chapped. So, after I do my I wanted you guys to hear my spontaneous reaction. So, I have not primed the pump at all. And after I listen to other people's reactions and give it some more thought, I may revise some of my opinions. But I figured we would engage in some self-masochism here. Communal self-masochism. I'm going to torture myself while you guys watch and torture yourself. And hopefully it's good for you. And hopefully it's good for me. Hey, hey. Not gonna kink shame here, babies. But before we do, since this is about some of my two favorite people, and by favorite people I mean not favorite people, let's really do some like serious grifting and whoring and pimping, shall we? I think we shall. So, how about along the bottom there? I definitely need more patrons. So, patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. You can become a patron. Oh, and everyone, I can see there's some comments about the shirt. This was from Goodwill. This shirt just cracks me up. And y'all know I'm a Christian, okay? But I have a really twisted sense of humor. So I found this shirt at the local Goodwill. And it's, I think it says, like, games for children, let's summon demons. It's a joke, people. If you can't laugh at your own religion, and it's picking on the satanic panic and that just ridiculous thing that happened. So, anyway, I didn't listen, speaking to Daniel, I did not listen to D.L. Cummings or Tyler Jenkins. I figured I was going to do this as a virgin. Like, I'm completely virginal here. I'm so innocent. But I got my wine to loosen me up. So to continue, excuse me, I drank it the wrong way. So to continue on, yes, patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty, and every super chat makes Joe Bishop Henchman and Andy Craig cry. So what's stopping you? What's stopping you from super chats? Anyway, we're going to listen to this thing. I'm going to see if I can keep comments up because it's not a YouTube show. It's a podcast. So I have the YouTube feed of it, but the YouTube feed doesn't show their pictures. It just shows, you know, a logo. So it's basically an audio. So I want to see, I'm going to try to pull it up, maybe pull up the chat window as well. Keep the chat window up. So give me a second. I should have set this all up, shouldn't I have? But let's see. So here's the
Hey there, it's Jeremiah.
Okay.
A quick
Here's
message
the
before the
screen. Now let me
Murray
see.
Rothbard was very much
Oops.
kind of in the lead.
I went way
of
too far. I can pull me over here. Let's see if I can make me bigger because we really don't need to. I want to keep his little credits here though. And let's see if I can pull up the chat window. Give me 1 second here. So that will be overlays. Where the hell are overlays? Overlays. Add a widget. Okay. Add widget overlay. Oh, look, I didn't change the... But this is okay. We can do it like this, right? So you can see the chat there. Now that kind of messes everything up, doesn't it? So let's resize this chat window. So add widget 800. So let's do it 400 by 800. I think that'll do it. Yeah. Okay, that's much better. All right, so we got the chat window. We've got this. So let's get started with this painful thing, shall we? Sorry, this is the screen's going to look all wacky like this. People asked what kind of wine. It's sangria, actually. That's why it's such a big glass. Because if this was regular wine, I'd be on the ground by the time we finish this. Now, this might go in multiple parts because I see it's 52 minutes long and I haven't cut anything out. Literally, because I haven't listened to it. I literally just downloaded it. So let me give some background to those of you who don't know, because I'll be referring to this before we get started. Most of you will know, but some people watching this show will not know. So Joe Bishop Henchman is, crap, how many chairs ago now? The former chair of the Libertarian Party, who resigned in disgrace thanks to my efforts, and I took human action. Ron Paul is very proud of me. Hold on, I need something else. Okay, I'll wear these while I'm talking. So Joe Bishop Henchman resigned in disgrace because of my efforts, which I consider one of my proudest achievements. He was corrupt and he engineered, we don't know whether Mr. Craig was involved at all. I have my own opinion on that, but I can't prove it. So, but we do know that Mr. Bishop Henchman, along with an unidentified co-conspirator, engineered the coup of the New Hampshire party. I exposed it, and because of that, he had to resign in disgrace as a corrupt chair. And on his way out, he deleted all of his party emails, which is destruction of party resources. Extremely and highly unethical, and I believe he destroyed those emails so that we could not find out who his co-conspirator was. Now, 2 facts I know about his co-conspirator. Now, you might say that these facts I know are not trustworthy because I got them from Gilletta Jarvis, and you might not trust Gilletta. I trust Gilletta in this, so I absolutely believe in these 2 facts about his co-conspirator. A, they don't live in New Hampshire, so that eliminates one person that everyone is thinking of. 2, they have since openly left the Libertarian Party. That would also eliminate the 2 people that were speculated about in stream. So I don't think it's the 2 names that were speculated about in stream. So it's someone who openly says they're no longer a part of the Libertarian Party and does not live in New Hampshire. So that doesn't eliminate Andy Craig. Doesn't say it is him, but it certainly doesn't eliminate him. It eliminates other people. It also, there's other people. Thank you for the super chat, Hector. It also leaves other people in the running, most certainly. So, and as one of his last acts before leaving or resigning was his vote to remove me. And we see how well that went, Mr. Henchman. So, and yes, everything I'm saying about him deleting emails and being involved in an absolutely against the bylaws coup to try to take over the New Hampshire Libertarian Party is documented by an independent investigation report published by the party, publicly published by the party. So go ahead, Mr. Henchman, try to sue me for what I just said. It's documented. Everything else is speculation, and I'm allowed to. You're a public figure. So am I. All right, so that's the background. So this isn't the most reputable person. Now, Andy Craig, some people are going to disagree with me, is a very, very smart person. People underestimate Andy. Andy is smart as a whip. He is now, and I think he was at the time of this whole incident, somehow involved with Cato. I don't know if they have direct employees, so I don't want to say he's an employee of Cato because I don't know how it works. But he's associated with Cato in some way. And I think he's on staff, but again, I don't particularly pay that close of attention to Cato's employee structure.
Objection, speculative.
No, Mr. Fishman, it's not speculative. He is involved in some sense with Cato. Let's see what else I got here.
Unauthorized recording.
No, Mr. Sarwark, this is not an unauthorized recording. All right, so that's the background there. So, Andy and Mr. Henchman, appropriate name, are not particularly happy with the direction of the party. You know, Mr. Henchman promised when he got elected as chair that he was going to be this great peacemaker, and Diana is correct. There's another way. Yes. But anyway, we're not going to get too much into New Hampshire unless they bring it up. Again, you could tell I haven't listened to this at all. If they bring it up, we'll bring it up. But I wanted to give you the background as to why you need to take everything Mr. Henchman says with a grain of salt. He is the disgraced former chair. Andy Craig, as far as we know, has not done anything like that. He may have been involved. He may not have been involved. We don't know. But he has openly repudiated the Libertarian Party. Both of them have. Mr. Henchman says he's now a registered independent. So they are both now allegedly no longer libertarian, so they're both life members, so whatever that counts for. But their open identification is not as libertarians right now, and I think there was something earlier in the chat by Justin O'Donnell that Andy Craig is actually a registered Republican. Is that true? I want to go back to that comment. Oh, his father is, so it says Andy Craig's father is a Liberty Republican state representative in New Hampshire. Okay. I'm not sure what Andy is registered as right now, but it's not libertarian, as to the best of my understanding. So both of them think there's some kind of great Yahtzee, that's the word we're going to use, some great Yahtzee takeover of the LP, which is a fever dream. But let's continue. We can sum it down to they're unhappy that there isn't a great progressive takeover of the LP. You see, I'm kind of weird about that. I kind of want there to be a libertarian takeover of the LP, but I'm kind of funny like that. But both of these people are not particularly trustworthy in my book. And everywhere you saw Mr. Henchman go, Andy Craig was attached to him at the hip. So, and it seems like he still is. Wonder how Cato Institute feels about one of their, again, I don't know if he's an employee, associates, let's just put it that way, going and publicly slandering the Libertarian Party, from what I understand. But let's listen. Maybe they'll convince me at the end here. Maybe I'm going to go join the Henchman army. Yeah, and maybe monkeys might fly out of my ass.
Ways, and to be influenced by many of those ideas.
Okay, let's go back a little bit. I think it starts at like 35. I want to turn the volume up. And you guys are going to have to let me know if you hear it. Okay, the volume's all the way up. Let's see.
Libertarian instincts in some ways, and to be influenced by many of those ideas.
Okay, we're going to go back even a little bit more. You can tell that I really haven't listened to this. We're going to start here no matter what.
Become a patron today at patreon.com/neoliberalproject and enjoy the episode.
Some jazzy
Welcome,
music.
everyone, to another episode of the Neoliberal Podcast, part of the Progressive Policy Institute. I'm your host, Jeremiah Johnson.
Okay, already.
When,
why did I do that again?
Said,
16 and
it's important.
I wanted to go. God, I keep hitting the wrong button. Hold on. All right. But we can hear the jazzy music again. Now, it's the Progressive Policy Institute. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Part of the Progressive Policy Institute. I'm your host, Jeremiah Johnson, and I am not a libertarian.
Jeremiah was a
as you might guess from the name of this podcast, which is the Neoliberal Podcast. We're very open about our ideological affiliation here.
Okay, well, listen, I'll give the guy credit, Mr. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. At least you're honest about where you're coming from. I can appreciate that.
But I follow the libertarian world pretty closely.
Yeah.
I was actually a former member of the Libertarian Party as a teenager. It's true. When I was 16 years old, I sent the Libertarian Party $25 so that I could become an official card-carrying member. It was the first time I ever did that, because I was very influenced growing up by libertarian writers and thinkers.
Okay, I'm very interested how old Jeremiah was. So he says he's a former card-carrying libertarian when he was a teenager. He sounds like he's in his 20s. So maybe we're going to say within the past decade. And listen, when we're teenagers, we go through a lot of phases, and there's no shame in that. When I was a teenager, I was a flaming liberal. And, flaming progressive, a neo-progressive, like he's a neoliberal. I guess that would be a neoliberal today. I mean, I was pretty far left when I was a teenager.
And even though I don't call myself a libertarian any longer, I still consider myself to have libertarian instincts in some way.
Like Jeb Bush has libertarian blood running through his veins? Okay, I don't know this guy. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be jamming on them. I don't know them.
And to be influenced by many of those ideas. And that's why it was really disheartening to see recently the Libertarian Party had its national convention. And
oh, we disappointed a leftist with our national convention? That's a feature, not a bug. Hopefully we disappointed a bunch of far-right people too. But I'm sure that's not what we're going to be hearing today. Anyway, sorry. I'm going to be interrupting the whole time. If you don't like this sort of thing, this isn't the show for you. Plus, I'm a little bit drunk.
They were taken over by a group of extremists. And
Guilt. Hold on. Yes, we were taken over by a bunch of Yes, we were taken over by a bunch of libertarian extremists. It's happening! All right, continuing.
And people with a lot of shady stuff going on.
Oh, a lot of shady stuff. You mean like engineering the coup of the New Hampshire party, helping to throw out a whistleblower and deleting evidence along the way? That kind of shit. How come? I suspect you're not talking about that kind of shady stuff. Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
And I thought it would be a good idea to talk through what's happening with the Libertarian Party and the movement and why this is going on. Joining me...
It's going on because the past LNC was corrupt. And because the party, even beyond the past LNC, had taken a hard turn left rather than a hard turn libertarian. The problem with folks like this is they think if you're not taking a hard turn left, that means you're taking a hard turn right, because they only exist on the left-right spectrum. And I deny the left-right spectrum. I'm a libertarian. And yes, Damon Bass is correct, or Bass. I'm going to tell you something funny, Damon. I'm probably going to make this shirt one day, but actually I have to give my ex-husband credit for it. He was a bass fisherman, and he wanted to make a shirt that says your bass smells like crappie. I thought that was pretty funny.
They are two libertarians who...
No, they're not. They both claim that they're not. So stop lying, Pinocchio. They both claim that they're not.
Very graciously agreed to join this podcast to talk about negative things about the Libertarian Party, despite the fact that they are libertarians, and we appreciate...
They're not. Maybe they consider themselves small L, but they're not big L libertarians. I'm glad Damon liked my joke, but wouldn't that be a funny shirt? That is pretty funny. That's a good fisherman joke. You got to admit it. All right. I could see that the straw man... How about a little fire, straw man? Said Dorothy.
Appreciate them for taking that jump. Andy Craig is a staff writer at the Cato Institute, and Joseph Bishop Henchman is an executive vice president at the National Taxpayers Union, and he's the former chair.
Former disgraced chair. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, you know, Jaime Kingslayer Lannister. It's Joseph, former disgraced chair, Bishop Henchman.
Of the Libertarian National Committee. And Andy and Joseph are joining us to talk about what's happened with the Libertarian Party, because it's had a pretty dramatic decline in the last...
I guess decline all depends upon your starting perspective. Hey, those of you who have listened to this, do they ever bring up that he resigned in disgrace, or do they try to paint it as him resigning like a martyr?
Week. There's a lot of people who are very concerned about this. Andy and Joe, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
He's a poet and didn't know it.
I do want to thank you guys for coming on, because it is a little bit of an awkward situation to be a libertarian and something horrible has happened with the Libertarian Party and you have to go on and be like...
Yeah, I know that feeling. It was last year when I was a libertarian and something horrible was happening with the Libertarian Party. Oh, you're not talking about that. Awkward.
Well, yes, the libertarians are bad now. It's a little bit of an awkward situation, so I want to acknowledge that up front, that, you know, I am putting you slightly in an awkward position.
Well, I think it's important because... I'm sorry, Andy. I was just going to say, I think it's important because I think in the next year or two, there's going to be moments where people come across something from the Libertarian Party and they're going to be like, wow, the Libertarian Party said that or did that?
Okay. When you're dealing with humans, humans are going to human. And I have no doubt that there's going to be some cringy thing said by the Libertarian Party or one of its affiliates over the next couple years, just like there was over the past 50 years, because it's run by humans. Remember, it was the past Libertarian Party that put out, and again, I was on the APRC at that time, so I'm one of the guilty parties for not catching it. But it is the past Libertarian Party that put out a Church of Satan Facebook post on Good Friday. Because humans gonna human. Lots of cringy stuff gets put out all the time by people. So, I'm not going to claim that this new and improved, which is what I think it is, LP is going to be any different.
And, because people don't follow this stuff as closely as obviously as Andy or I do.
I do! I follow it more closely than both of you. In fact, it was me following it so closely, sir, is why you had to resign in disgrace.
And they're going to search around for an answer for that. And,
yeah, I hope they find this channel.
Could serve as that answer for a lot of people to explain why things will be so dramatically different now.
And to clarify, we're both ideological libertarians, and we were both.
No, I don't ever tell somebody they're not a libertarian, but I can say both of you have engaged in very unlibertarian activities, very, very unlibertarian points of view. Henchman believes in mandatory vaccinations. I do not know how Andy Craig feels about that. But I don't tell anybody they're not ideological libertarian. I let their works show them for who they are. I'm sure on many things they are hardcore libertarian, and on other things they aren't, like very many people. But they're really trying to pad their pedigree here. I guess that's what got me going.
Were heavily involved in the party, but we both quit about a year ago. Joe?
No, okay. Yeah, you both quit. But Mr. Bishop Henchman got caught with his hand in a corrupt cookie jar, let's be honest.
Resigned as chair. We've both since left our party membership, so we are, as they say, lowercase L libertarians
okay,
now.
Fair enough.
So I have certainly don't have any truck to carry on defending the party and its reputation, and it's exactly like Joe said, that over the next year or two, we expect you're going to see some pretty gross things coming out of it.
I'm reminded of the Never Trump Republicans who left the Republican Party in 2016 and, were cast into the wilderness. But we'll get into all that.
Oh, so they're like the never...
At this point.
Oh, I did it again.
Almost on its closely. There can be a lot of explanations here. Things will be so dramatically different.
Okay, here we are.
Now.
And to clarify, we're both ideological libertarians, and we were both.
I'm trying to hear better, so I'm putting my headphones on.
Party, but we both quit about a year ago. Joe resigned as chair. We've both since left our party membership, so we are, as they say, lowercase L libertarians now. So I have certainly don't have any truck to carry on defending the party.
Yeah, Andy Craig's voice is very deep. It is exactly nothing like. No, you would not expect that super bass voice to come out of Andy Craig, but he does have this wonderfully deep bass voice.
And its reputation, and it's exactly like Joe said, that over the next year or two, we expect you're going to see some pretty gross things coming out of it.
I'm reminded of the Never Trump Republicans who left the Republican Party in 2016 and, were cast into the wilderness. But we'll get into all that. I think the first thing we have to do is talk about just the basics of what's gone on. I'll try to say it as simply as I can and then let you guys fill in some of the detail. The Libertarian National Convention happened, which is where the party has its national convention. And
is it just me, or do these guys talk super slow? And I don't have a way on this program to like put them at 1.5 speed. But my God, do I just talk fast?
In terms of seizing power at that convention, winning the elections for the seats on the national committee, there's a group called the Mises Caucus, named after the economist Ludwig von Mises. And this group essentially has a racist, basically white nationalist.
Oh, fuck off. Jeremiah Johnson, fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. That is slander. How about I just make up a bunch of names to call you? Baseless, disgusting slander. Way to poison the well.
Lean to it. And this group they won every seat. They won every seat on the National Committee, and now they...
Yep, we did. Well, no, he's incorrect. 2 people who were not endorsed by the Mises Caucus, and to be honest with you, I don't know what their caucus affiliation is or isn't, because that isn't my thing, to be honest with you, but 2 people won alternate seats that were not endorsed. But I don't know anything about their background, like when it comes to caucus, and I don't care. I care how they're going to perform on the LNC. And so far, they've been performing just fine. But, so, you're thinking, really, that there's such... It's amazing to me. I wonder, like, what world they live in. That they think there are really that many white nationalist racists to take over the 3rd largest political party in the country. But they probably think the Republican Party is full of racists too. Now, I disagree with the Republican Party, and I disagree with Donald Trump, but he's not a racist. He's not half of the things they've called him. He's terrible without being those things. Unfortunately, we've raised the bar so high for terribleness that if you fall short of calling anyone a Yahtzee, then they're just not terrible. But people can be terrible without that. But God, I feel sorry for people who see white nationalism under every single rock. And here's what's funny. Here is what's super funny. I don't know Jeremiah, so I could be wrong. But I'm assuming he's a white guy. You got 3 white guys here. You got 3 white guys here who are just lecturing the nation about white supremacy. White savior complex much? Are you here to tell the minorities that they need to feel oppressed by this alleged white supremacy? Weren't you raised in that culture? Why should we trust you, 3 white men? Now, I know 2 of you could go, yeah, but we're gay white men. Gay's not cool anymore, dude. Gay is the new cis. Just like, yellow was the new black. Gay is the new cis.
To be in full control of the party. So I guess my first question would just be, what's the setup here? Like, how did this happen? Was this a long time coming, or was this out of nowhere?
It wasn't out of nowhere, although I'm sure some...
Okay, before we get to the out of nowhere, I want to answer some comments. They're not implying that 70% of libertarians are racist white supremacists. They are directly saying that 70% of the people at convention were, or sympathetic to it. the convention is supposed to represent the party. I don't know whether they're going to concede that it does. I think the convention represented the wider Libertarian Party and Libertarian movement. And Shale gave me space bar. I don't think that works in Ecamm, dude. I'm using Ecamm, so let me know, Shale. And if that's your real name, that's a super cool name. And just for the record, so that I can gain my oppression points here, you know, we're dealing with marginalized communities. Even though most people cannot define a woman, I am a woman. Also, part of the LGBT community myself. Yeah, I'm married to a man, but I'm also attracted to women, so that makes me bi. I also have autism, so I have the disabled person card. So I think my oppression points outscore the oppression points of these three white guys.
People may perceive it as such, certainly if they weren't following it very closely.
Oh, and if you want to hear something really rich, there were 2 bisexual women on the last LNC. And they did a show on LPTV on how the majority of the LNC was members of the LGBT community. But guess who they excluded from that show? The 2 bisexual women. It was just the gay and pan men. Patriarchy much, Mr. Bishop Henchman?
There can be a lot of explanations here, structural ones, personality ones, you know, cause and effect ones and everything. But, I mean, the gist of it is that the Libertarian Party ran Gary Johnson and Bill Weld in 2016.
Yes, they ran weak sauce Libertarian and a non-Libertarian on their ticket, and you thought there would be no consequences to that. Carlin, who is pan, Richard Longstreth is pan. I'm not revealing secrets. He was very open about that.
And at least by third party in America standards, did relatively well. Got 3% of the vote, secured permanent.
Okay, if votes all that count, they did relatively well. If actually making libertarians and spreading libertarian ideology matters, no, they did not do well. Bake the cake did not do well.
Ballot access got a lot of favorable coverage in the press, a lot of new.
They got a lot of favorable coverage in the press. Gary Johnson did not get a lot of favorable coverage in the press. He got mocked by Samantha Bee. He's known for what is Lepo and Libertarian 4323. Yes, you've lost your racist white supremacist street cred.
Supporters and donors and activists, a lot of people really excited. A lot of people exposed to the ideas of freedom and.
We did get a lot of new volunteers. True.
Rests on rule of law and champions individual rights and supports immigration and supports all the other great things about liberal and libertarian ideas, liberal in the classical sense. And there was a
yes and no. As I said in another podcast, the Libertarian Party is not a classical liberal party. Classical liberals believe in public schools. They believe in public utilities and things like that. Hardcore, pure, as it were, libertarianism does not.
To that, where some people don't support immigration and some people don't support diversity in all of its forms, and some people don't.
Wait, what does diversity in all of its forms mean? Does diversity in all of its forms include people who disagree with you? Is that not a form of diversity, Mr. Henchman? I'm open borders. It's really funny, and this is why I always felt was incumbent upon me to answer these kinds of criticisms, because, like, I'm not the caricature you would like to paint of the quote-unquote archetypical Mises Caucus person. A, I'm bisexual. B, I'm a woman. C, I'm not conservative by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I openly call myself a libertine. There's diversity of views within the Mises Caucus.
Support, and they view these things as deviationist, and it kind of
I've never heard that word before today. Deviationists. Who? You know how many open borders people there are in the Mises Caucus? There's quite a few.
I guess after my predecessor as chair condemned what happened in Charlottesville.
Everyone condemns what happened in Charlottesville, Mr. Henchman. Everyone does. I think even hardcore white supremacists do, because crying Yahtzees are embarrassing to even other Yahtzees. Never mind people who hate Yahtzees.
The white supremacist gathering was there, and there was a reaction to that where people thought the Libertarian Party shouldn't be condemning these people. And
nobody said that. Nobody said that. What people might be saying, however, and this is conversation that is just apparently not allowed. And one thing I so appreciated by a Bill Maher monologue the other day, and I don't often agree with Bill on some of his ultimate positions, but his monologues are great. And he had said, we've gotten to a place in our country where you can't even talk about things. You can't even ask questions without being shouted down. Now, I'm a free speech purist. I don't think there are any questions that cannot be asked. Now, I may choose not to participate in certain discussions, but I don't believe in shutting down people simply because they ask questions. There is nobody, and when I say nobody, don't take me hyper literally. You could probably find some nut in the Libertarian Party that doesn't think Charlottesville should have been condemned. Just like you could probably even find a nut in the Democrat Party that doesn't think so. What you more commonly might find is, what kind of situations in our country happened that made a bunch of young white men feel so disenfranchised that they felt that they had to turn towards such an awful ideology? That is a valid question, and it doesn't legitimize what those men did. But if we're going to keep our country on the route of peace and of protecting individual rights, when whole groups of people feel marginalized, you should be asking why. And people like Joe Bishop Henchman think that's fine as long as it's black people who feel that way or some other smaller group. But it's not okay to ask that question when it's what young white men. No, dear sir, you need to ask that question whenever anyone feels that way. There was a pastor in my past that I no longer agree with the point he was making in which he said this expression, but I still agree in the expression. It doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable. When you're part of a group that's been made the great villain, and young white men, or even old white men, it seems like, well, I guess all white men have been made the villain du jour, that's going to have consequences. And it doesn't make people turning towards hateful ideologies, and Yahtzeeism is a hateful ideology. Read my lips. But if we want to prevent things like Charlottesville from happening again, it does more good to examine why it happened than just sit there and self-righteously condemn that it happened. Not that the two are mutually exclusive, but we need to do both. What is going on today? That the villain, we have to create a whole demographic to be villains. I don't like that when it's young black men. I don't like that when it's old white men. I don't like it when it's anybody based upon those kinds of characteristics.
And that's when this caucus was formed after that, in reaction to that, with the goal of changing.
Liar. Liar. You are a liar. Go fuck yourself. You're a liar. The Mises Caucus was not formed in reaction to Charlottesville. You know damn well that's a lie. It was formed in reaction to what was going on in the Libertarian Party, not to anything that was going on external to it. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Party, so that it wasn't opposing these kinds of things. And I've never really understood it.
You are a liar. You are a... Let's continue.
On paper, this caucus talks about Mises and Austrian economics and all of that, and I mean,
And they do it more than on paper. On paper, you're not a liar.
I've read Hayek, I've read Baumberg, I've studied abroad in Austria. I feel like I understand Austrian economics, but that's not really what it's about any more than like North Korea's state UK ideology is something tangible, or China's thoughts of the leader are a tangible thing. A lot of it is just wanting to divide this populist notion of dividing the world into us and them.
You mean like neoliberals do? Like intersectionality does? You are deluded.
And us, and they very clearly define who them is, and them is anybody who has a cosmopolitan view of the world.
I have a cosmopolitan view of the world, dear sir, very openly. I did talks at multiple state conventions that had large Mises majorities entitled The Humanitarian Responsibility of Freedom, that ended with the prayer of St. Francis and exhorted the audience that we are our brother's keeper. So who are you talking about? I was an endorsed officer candidate. I'm sorry that I'm an inconvenient truth to you, Mr. White Man.
Who views rights as human rights and is willing to go along with a lot of that stuff and doesn't really prioritize rule of law or democracy or...
Well, we certainly don't prioritize democracy. Neither do libertarians for the past 50 years. If you prioritize democracy as a political system, not as a voluntary system, I have no problem with democracy in the Libertarian Party because I'm not forced to be part of the Libertarian Party because I popped out of a vagina at a certain longitude and latitude. Like I am by the fact that I was born in a certain country. I have no problem with democracy in voluntary groups. But we don't prioritize democracy as a political system. If you thought libertarianism was about democracy, you didn't understand libertarianism, henchman.
Individual rights other than a very warped view of property rights. And
a warped view of property rights. I hope he explains that. What does that mean? What is the somebody who watched this, does he actually explain what a warped view of property rights is? I would love to hear that. Are you denying a libertarian view of property rights, Mr. Henchman? Until you define that, right now I'm left to guess. But the Mises Caucus does not have a warped view of property rights. I do think they misapply it in the immigration issue. But so do a lot of people. The non-open borders Mises people I disagree with, but I disagree with them in good faith. I've done multiple shows on that, primarily addressing points made by Dave Smith. But I've never accused him of bad faith or having a warped view of property rights, because it's hard. Let me tell you a reality here. It's hard to hold or consistently hold to a pure view of property rights in an impure world, because we don't have a tabula rasa. We don't have a clean slate right now. We have to deal with the issue of the unfree world we live in right now and how we get from here to there. And libertarians in good faith are going to disagree with that. I might need to take an intermission and get more wine. Where's Wayne? Wayne, are you watching the show? If you're watching the show, I need more wine. Wayne! He doesn't hear me. I definitely need more wine. I finished that. My glass has a hole in it. It appears to be empty. Somebody call Wayne and tell him I need more wine. All right, let's continue. We're definitely going to have to do this in multiple parts because I'm already at over an hour. We've only got not even 10 minutes into this. I can't text him because I record on my phone. This is the newest iPhone. This camera quality on this is boss. Oh, wait. Did I yell? Wayne. Ah! He heard me! Come on. People want to see you. You got to come on camera.
The air conditioner going and 2 fucking heaters going.
You air conditioner's not going.
Yeah, it's spewing out right now.
No, it's not. I turned it off. You got to come on camera. Everyone wants to see you. You got to say hi.
Hey, everybody. My princess here, she's giving you all the information. And I was watching it from upstairs.
Okay, well, so you were probably laughing when I started calling for you.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is the last of the sangria. No, I'm hot. I mean, I'm cold. Whatever I am. So that's the last of the sangria. Do we have more wine? Regular wine. Okay. Okay, everyone says shut the door on your way out. All right. Let's continue.
And it just...
Oh, I went too far again. God damn it. Here we go.
Rights as human rights, and is willing to go along with a lot of that stuff and doesn't really prioritize rule of law or democracy or individual rights other than a very warped view of property rights. And the party, there's a structural explanation here too. The party structurally is its leaders.
Okay. When I accidentally skipped ahead, I did hear him complaining about the democratic structure of the party, which is ironic. He doesn't really complain. It's like a low-key complaint, but it's funny considering how he was idolizing democracy here. But he doesn't like democracy when it doesn't work out the way he likes it. See, that is funny to me. By the way, if you want to keep me in wine, more super chats can never hurt, and it would make neoliberals cry.
Chosen at 1 or 2 day conventions all over the country. And if you're able to bring in more people, which in some cases...
The party belongs to those who show up.
This can be 15 or 20 people into these conventions, you get...
Okay, it can be 15 or 20 people. But for the larger parties, it's not 15 or 20 people. Excuse me, I drank my wine too fast. It's a lot more than that. In Colorado, I think the Mises Caucus probably brought in 80 to 90 people. It's nice to diminish it.
100% of the seats. And so if you have enough people to do that, times 50, you win 100% of the delegates, and then you get to run...
Well, they didn't win 100% of the delegates.
...show at the national convention. And that's essentially what happened. So this is about a couple hundred people who've met online through podcasts.
Oh, wait. A couple hundred people? Okay, let's do the math here. Yeah, Matt Hartley said 15 to 20 people showing up to a meeting was enough to destroy my entire life. Yeah, boo-hoo. Wait, let's do the math here. On average, a Libertarian Party convention has a maximum of 1,050 delegates. That's plus or minus 7. But let's just say 1,050. Well, he was saying 100%. 100% wouldn't be a couple hundred. It'd be over 1,000. But it wasn't 100%. It was 70%. So we're talking about over 700 people paying multiple thousands of dollars each to get to a convention in Reno. It's funny the way he's diminishing this.
They have and forums that they have and have connected themselves together.
Really? So all of these people, he's making it like it's these weird cells that met on the dark web. And that just showed up to these groups to take them over. No, that's not the way it happened. A lot of states, you just don't show up to be a delegate, but some you do. But I can tell you, from Colorado, the Mises Caucus people did the work. In the states that I'm familiar with, the Mises people did the work. I've met a lot of these people in person. Now, of course, some people met online. There's nothing wrong with that. But to act like there's no personal connection, that this is just some underground cyber network, which is how he's trying to paint it, is not true, particularly within the states. Where H. Reardon's saying he has good points. No, he doesn't. Because understand that he is generalizing and saying even within each individual state, the people that showed up to the state conventions are people that just met online. That might be true interstate, but that is fucking not true in-state. The people in-state had local caucus meetings, and they knew each other. So I'm sorry, H. Reardon, no, he doesn't have good points. I have a reputation of conceding when people have good points, and when he makes one. Oh, Pete Q. Sorry, H. Reardon. So now I have the chance to apologize where I missed the context. Probably because I'm a little drunk. But Joe, I don't know about Pete Q because honestly, I don't listen to him very much. So I'm ignorant there. I will shut up on your conversation. Sorry for intruding.
On social media and have executed this plan fairly flawlessly and been able to take over the party.
Yeah, and I'll chime in on.
You mean by showing up and doing the work and getting elected? You got a weird definition there, dude. Yeah, I wasn't paying complete attention to the chat to know that there were two conversations going. Please, though, I like the chat to be organic. Don't feel like you can't have side conversations. I never, ever want to restrict the chat like that because you guys are a community unto yourself. If you want to have a side conversation, knock yourself out.
That even though there's a lot of details and aspects of it that are kind of particular to the obscure libertarian world and paleo-libertarianism. And
what the fuck? It's paleo-libertarianism. I know you got a fetish for that, Andy Craig, because you're living in the past and Rothbard lives in your brain. But that ain't it, hun.
It goes back to, like, you know, the Ron Paul newsletters and Lou Rockwell. But
what would you do without those newsletters?
The basic gist of it is going to be familiar to anybody who's on political Twitter and has seen the kind of anti-wokeness crusaders is you know how they themselves probably prefer to define it.
No, I don't. Well, maybe some people would prefer to define it that way, but here's what's funny. I've said this multiple times, and I'll say it again, no matter how inconvenient. I'm a very inconvenient person to both these men in multiple ways. I mean, I cost JBH his job. He thought he cost me mine, but I got it back, honey. But personally, in my personal life, I'm quite woke. Politically, yeah, I'm an anti-woke crusader because I don't think you should be using force. You need to be using persuasion, and it's not the job of a political party. A political party has to do with government, which has to do with force. So I'm a woke, anti-woke crusader, however inconvenient that may be to you, Mr. Craig.
Where, you know, if you do a rainbow flag,
but he has
for
a
pride,
beautiful voice, doesn't he?
Too woke. If you say Black Lives Matter, that's too woke.
Really? So here I am. I'm a Mises endorsed candidate, and I'll say it right now. Black Lives Matter. Are you going to implode, Mr. Craig? And I do think it's wrong to respond to Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter, just like it's wrong if somebody's talking about prostate cancer to say all cancer matters. Yeah, all cancer does matter. But we're talking about prostates right now. I'm so inconvenient to these people.
So that it's very, even, you know, whatever pretend, you know, these are not people who really care about marginal utility and the subjective theory of value.
That was words. Are you channeling Mike Shipley? That was a word salad right there. Care to unpack that suitcase, Mr. Craig?
In spite of the Mises name, what they're really focused on is.
Oh, I love when other people tell me what I'm really focused on, Mr. Man. Are you going to mansplain to me, Andy Craig? Are you going to mansplain to the little woman what I'm really focused on?
The Libertarian Party and most of the libertarian movement had always been very proud that we're socially liberal.
That's a somewhat recent invention. We're socially libertarian and we're fiscally libertarian. Define socially liberal. No, the Libertarian Party, the way you're defining socially liberal, never has been. Some people in it may have been. The way he's defining socially liberal is that you have to be okay with every single lifestyle or you're a Yahtzee. The Libertarian Party's position is that the government cannot restrict your personal lifestyles. But it doesn't make you a bad libertarian if you personally don't think that's the best choice for human flourishing. And I am saying that as I'm going to put all my cards on the table. And I could lose supporters for this, but I don't care. I'm me. This is why I'm the best person a lot of times to respond to this, because I am so inconvenient to these people. I do not believe that the nuclear family is necessarily the best way to have a stable civilization. Oh my God, that must be heresy. I've said that multiple times, even in the Mises Caucus group. If you want to have a nuclear family, great. I do think there are other models that could be just as socially stable and beneficial to human flourishing. I don't think, unlike social conservatives, that there's anything wrong with a married couple having an open marriage. I personally don't have a problem with sex work. Most dating today is sex work. We just don't want to call it that. However, I don't think if somebody disagrees with me but doesn't want to use the force of the state, that they're a bad libertarian. See, I think ideas can compete on the open market. I don't need to use force for my ideas. I'm not threatened by people who have different ideas than I do. as long as we're both not using the force of the state. Libertarianism is about the force of the state. I'm going to say what this is really about. And it's not about bigots. And it's not about Yahtzees. And it's not about all this crap that they're trying to make it about. This is what it's about. It's about whether or not libertarianism is thick or thin. I doubt that will come up in this show, but that is really what this battle is about. Is political libertarianism, not personal libertarianism, but political libertarianism. Is it thick or is it thin? Political libertarianism is absolutely thin. It is incoherent if you try to shoehorn thick libertarianism into a political model. And that is what Reno was about. They're trying to obfuscate that. This wasn't about paleo-libertarianism. It was about thick versus thin.
We're accepting of and advocating gay equality decades before mainstream politics.
Okay. No, they weren't. Listen, obviously, with my own predilections, I believe in gay equality. But we've rewritten our own history. Let me take you back in history a little bit. Because as I've said, and I'm going to create the t-shirt, and if any of you guys out there are graphic designers and can do something less ugly than me, I want the t-shirt that says history doesn't care about your feelings. People like to claim that we openly advocated for gay marriage in our first platform. Really? Show me where. It was certainly implied in our first platform, but it wasn't explicit. We advocated that the government shouldn't discriminate. Now, that does imply gay marriage, but it doesn't explicitly say so. To take it further, it also implies polygamous marriage. People don't want to go there, but it does. So Andy Craig is narrowing. He's like taking the binoculars and focusing on one thing and missing the wider picture. We advocated for equal rights for everyone, as long as they were not harming anyone else. Of course, that includes gay rights. But to make it that we advocated for gay rights as gay rights is wrong. We advocated for human rights, of which gay rights is a subset.
And that sort of thing.
He's not very articulate. It's surprising me.
For criminal justice reform when the George Floyd protest happened and that sort of thing. The party was
I don't think very many people in the Mises Caucus would disagree with you. Criminal justice reform is huge. Did you notice that the Mises Caucus, with their 70%, edited the platform to include elimination of qualified immunity? Or is that just another inconvenient truth for you, Mr. Craig?
Choice until a few days ago when they changed that. So I think if you're trying to understand kind of the real big energy focus, just kind of imagine all the right-wing podcasters you know that like to rant about how cultural Marxism is...
Have you ever heard me say that word?
...is, you know, and wokeness is destroying America, and it's basically that.
I want to fill in some detail here.
Wokeness is destroying America. Political wokeness is. Not personal. As I said, I'm personally pretty damn woke. I just don't believe in using the force of the state. And it would surprise me of any quote-unquote libertarian who didn't agree with me.
Just so that people don't get the impression that this is like, oh, well, you know, there's some libertarians who are woke and there's some who think wokeness goes too far. Because I think that's almost being too kind to them. to say, oh, well, this is about libertarians who don't like putting a pride flag in there. They think that's pandering, and it's...
Okay, corporations putting a pride flag on stuff is pandering. Simple as that. Do you think the corporations care about you? They don't.
Little more than that. So I'm just gonna list out some details. The Mises Caucus has a website that has articles that offer these weird soft-pedaled defenses of Hitler.
No, they don't. You're talking about one article, so it's pretty funny that you call it defenses. No, they don't. They are trying to bring historical facts to bear. Nowhere in that article does it say that Hitler was not a bad guy, an evil man, perhaps closest that you could get to a human incarnation of Satan. But even Hitler didn't kick every puppy on the way home. And to try to put things into historical accuracy is not being a Hitler apologist. I do not know of one person, there might be one, I don't know them, that wouldn't agree that Hitler is probably, and I'm saying probably because I'm thinking back in ancient history, and there were some pretty terrible people in ancient history too that have done some horrific things. But let's talk about in modern history. And I'm thinking of some of like the Assyrian warlords and things like that. But let's think of modern history. I can't think of one Mises person who doesn't think that Hitler was the walking embodiment of evil. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around what that man did. But that doesn't mean... It's kind of like where you make up things about somebody who's already bad, and you're like, you don't even need to make up things to make them bad. They're bad on their own. And you want to know what? You want to know what's pretty damn bad? Lying about people to make them Hitler apologists. That's fucking gross. You are despicable.
1930s, and talk about how Hitler just wanted to be a great man, like Otto von Bismarck or whatever.
Hitler did
their
want to be a great man.
Candidate,
he wasn't.
A comic named
but
Dave
he was
Smith
driven by a
basically
weird
an open white
egotism
nationalist
to be the
who says
savior
that
of
he
Germany.
thinks it's a scientific fact that blacks are genetically less intelligent than other races. He uses transphobic slurs that I'm not going to repeat here, but he basically says all
individual members may have done each of those things. You want to know what? An individual member of the Pragmatist Caucus and a good friend of Andy Craig told me I should divorce my husband because he's not open borders, and if you're not open borders, then you hate Mexican people. That's a pretty despicable thing to say. Do you think I impute that to every single Prag? No. That's just Adam Bates. Adam Bates defended Linda Saussure, who said that another woman should have her vagina taken away. Do you think I impute that to all Prags? No. That's just a fault of Adam Bates. So individual people who might or might not be a member of a caucus doing some things and saying some things I don't agree with don't make the whole group something.
Phobic, or all trans people are liars, their identity is a lie, and he calls them the slur that you're probably thinking of. He goes around with a list of who's who on the alt-right, like Stefan Molyneux and Nick Fuentes and Richard Spencer and Gavin McInnes and all the podcast alt-right that you're probably thinking of. So there's real, like, open white nationalism here, and just...
Wait, so talking to people who have ideas you disagree with is white nationalism, is it? So can I assume by this, since you're talking with Joe Bishop Henchman, that you think it's okay to destroy party property in order to cover up your co-conspirator? Do you agree with that? Or can I assume just because you're having an interview with him doesn't mean that you agree with every single thing that he's ever done or said?
Bigotry of all kinds. And this is the group that we're talking about, right? It's not just, oh, well, some libertarians think that it's really weird how woke people are. I feel like the complaining about wokeism is almost like the hook, and that's how they get you. And then they start trying to get people into the darker stuff.
I think that's right. And a lot of it, I mean, they would...
My God, okay. We're about 15 minutes into this thing, and I understand now why people said they turned it off after 15 minutes. I'm like super tempted because we're already an hour and a half. I'm going to go 2 hours on this show. We're not going to get through it all today. We'll continue tomorrow. I'm going to definitely need more wine because we're almost done now with the second full glass, and that's not enough to get through this. But we're going to power through for another half hour. Super chats help. Mama needs money.
No, they would vehemently deny that we're white nationalists and whatnot, but it's absolutely...
But of course, that's what white nationalists would do, wouldn't they? They'd deny it. Oh my God, what a Kafka trap. Andy, I know you're smart enough to know what that is.
True, the examples you cited. It's a kind of... I will give the family-friendly version of it, but if you follow Ken White on Twitter, Popat, he has this thing called the Rule of Goats, where if it doesn't matter if you say you are sleeping with the goat ironically, you are still sleeping with a goat.
What? I did not think we were going to be getting into bestiality in this show. No, if you say you're doing something ironically, no, you're not actually doing it. I'm sorry. That is mental. That's barking moonbat. You can say you're doing something ironically without doing it. Otherwise, you cannot even possibly understand the birds aren't real movement. So by this logic, the people in the birds aren't real movement who are saying that ironically actually believe birds aren't real. Got it.
Is the polite version of it. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that to it, where it's, we want to own the libs, and what's the most own the libs thing you can do? It's to be racist or homophobic, and then.
Oh my God. Oh, does that mean then, Andy, the most own the cons thing you can do is to literally hate white men, including yourself, and hate straight and want to destroy the nuclear family? I mean, these caricatures can go both ways, can't they, sir?
Sit back and say, haha, you got so mad, when people get mad at you for being a crazy bigot. And so that's a lot of the dynamic that drives it, just like it does on so much of the online alt-right, which this is big.
They've said a lot of words so far. No substance, but a lot of words. Can we subtitle the show Ode to a Barking Moonbat?
Basically part of.
I'll just add, it's all very horrific stuff, and there's other examples.
Listen, if anything you've said so far is horrific stuff, please don't leave your house, because there are actual horrors in this world.
Beyond which that you've cited there. I'll also say that I don't think most of the supporters of this group have really understood,
Oh, but you do. The insufferable fucking arrogance. Fuck off. Did I enunciate that clearly? You understand but the poor, benighted, stupid followers don't. How do you fit through a doorway with a head that big?
That's what this is about. I mean, there's a Confederate apologia component. There's a, hurt.
Confederate now, too. Boy, are there any more buzzwords you can throw against the wall? What did he miss? We've got white nationalists. We got Yahtzee. We got Confederates.
Trans people.
Transphobe. Yep, we forgot about that.
There's a lot of stuff there.
Stuff,
I think
yes.
there are a lot of people that think it really is just about Austrian economics and get...
Wow. Okay. Then if there are a lot of people who don't see that it's Yahtzee, white nationalist, racist, transphobe, has it ever occurred to you that maybe it isn't? Or you're just smarter than everyone else? Ego, the size of a fucking blimp.
In that way. And
by the way, I think you all know by now, this show is definitely not getting monetized.
I don't really know what they're supporting, and there's a lot of people who were at this recent convention that people have told me, I was not there, but people told me that
I was not there, but I heard.
They were just there to follow orders and vote as they were told, and didn't really even understand what they were doing or why.
Okay. I was part of the planning meetings leading up to the convention with Mises Caucus people. And one thing I could tell you they were not was people that were easily led and just followed orders. Let me give you a case in point. Did you ever wonder why the Mises Caucus didn't have an endorsement for vice chair? Because those unruly people, who according to Bishop Henchman just follow orders, wouldn't follow the order of endorsing Eric Rotsep. And in fact, they had the unmitigated gall to elect Joshua Smith, who wasn't even endorsed by the chair candidate. I'm sorry, that's inconvenient to you, Mr. Henchman. My God, this is one of the stupidest shows I've ever heard.
But, they've been able to organize that and make that happen, and that's good enough to take over the party, especially now in COVID times where a lot of longtime supporters of the Libertarian Party have been, especially in 2020 and 2021, wary about going to large, big events.
No, I'm sorry. Long-term supporters of the party did not avoid conventions. Your small little group of paranoid government bootlickers might have been. But that is not libertarians as a whole. And notice you said 2020 and 2021. When were the delegates elected? 2022.
Lots of people. And so that really changes who's showing up at these events and casting votes for leadership.
One of the things I found really interesting and funny at the convention, there's a video you can find on YouTube where Justin Amash, he was at the convention and he started reading out a bunch of quotes about how we need a cosmopolitan internationalist order that respects all.
Okay, I'm going to first give it up to Justin Amash and then criticize him. First of all, everyone knows I have a huge crush on Justin Amash. So don't come for me. He's a cutie pie. Don't come for me. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, sorry, Gary Johnson, I've transferred my political crush to Justin Amash. Oh my God, he's such a cutie pie. However, and now I'm going to do the defense of Justin Amash. Oh, hold on. Doc Sexy is in the house.
Objection, speculative.
It's not speculative, Mr. Fishy Man. Doc Sexy is in the house. Justin Amash gave me hope at that convention. Because he trolled the fuck out of the Mises Caucus people. And I was trolled as well. I was in the background there getting triggered as hell by what Amash was saying until I realized what he's doing. And I said to Seebeck, who was right next to me, I'm like, is he trolling us? And after I realized he was trolling, I was like, way to go. But yeah, Matt Hartley has a good point here. Just because you're named after someone doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that person says. I'm a Rothbardian. I think Rothbardian's view on children was horrific. Oh, maybe we're not thralls to one person. But I actually loved the way Justin Amash trolled everyone. And if y'all watch the video, I'm not sure if it's on the video, but if you were there, you saw it. As he was going down the steps, I shook his hand and I'm like, dude, that was so well done. You got me. Now, I'm going to give some criticism. He misquoted Mises in some of points. He said libertarian where Mises said liberal. Words had a lot of different meanings then, but it was a good troll. And it proved just because you're named after someone doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that person agreed with. It's very well known that Mises was not an anarchist and did not approve of anarchism. However, I would guess the Mises Caucus is about half anarchist.
And, you know, it's very, like, kind of free love and hippie sounding. And it's, you could call it hippie libertarianism almost. And it's peace, love, international cooperation, blah, blah, blah. And he was getting some booze and some
Is peace, love, international cooperation hippieism? When I think of hippieism, at least in the American sense, it's free love. Now, peace, definitely. But it's more free love, drug use, anti-authoritarianism type thing. He's boiling it down to certain elements that aren't even the most prominent part of hippieism. Okay, I want to address some comments in chat. I wouldn't call Angela's endorsement of Eric an order, but considering that Angela was the proverbial top of the ticket, it was a very, very, very strong suggestion to support Eric. And it definitely was, you're not giving Angela what she wanted. She wanted Eric. That was obvious. Yet the delegates elected Joshua. Now, I know some people will argue that some haters elected Joshua just to get back at Angela. And that's true, but Joshua wouldn't have won just on that alone. I'll tell you right off, I voted for Joshua. I endorsed Joshua. Yet I still got endorsed by Mises and endorsed by Angela. So no, we don't all just follow orders. And that isn't because I disliked Eric. I endorsed Joshua before Eric ever put his name in the hat. I owe a tremendous debt of loyalty to Joshua. I've explained before multiple times why I endorsed Joshua. I've explained to Angela why I endorsed Joshua. But that whole vice chair race shows that we're not a bunch of lemmings. And I'm super fond of Eric. If Eric had gotten elected, I wouldn't have cried. He would have been a very good vice chair. But I cast my vote for Joshua.
And then he revealed that all of the quotes were actually from Ludwig von Mises. And just basically trying
no,
to
he
troll
changed
this
some
group
of the words, Andy, be honest.
Of trolls, I guess.
That's right, and I've had similar interactions before where, you know, I mean, von Mises supported open borders. He was very, there's a whole extended section in human...
God, this is such a rabbit trail. No one in the Mises Caucus has ever claimed that they worship Ludwig von Mises or everything that he endorsed, including open borders. That's probably the biggest point of disagreement. the Mises Caucus is primarily an economic podcast. To bring in those other issues is being dishonest.
Where he very kind of viciously mocks racism and the whole idea of that any of this stuff matters.
Matt, if you worship Rothbard, ironically,
so,
that
yeah,
means you
it's certainly
actually worship Rothbard.
One of the sad things about it that his name has managed to be used the way it was.
Yeah, I'm sure you're very concerned
that was
about
kind
that,
of a fun
Andy.
moment with a mock
Concern
trolling,
troll.
It doesn't affect the outcome, and kind of the headline takeaway. I think the thing a lot of people noticed is.
Oh, I'm glad this came up in chat. I don't agree with Hoppy. I know Mises people are supposed to be a bunch of Hoppians. I don't care for Hoppy. I don't disagree with him on every point. I think his argumentation ethics are brilliant, but I think his neo-feudalism is disgusting. But yet, I'm still in the Mises Caucus.
Yeah, they took all the seats on the National Committee.
Nope.
But they
all
went
but
out
two.
of their way to delete from the party platform a line that has been there basically since the start, almost.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Andy Craig, and you know better. I know you know better because you and I are both big, big history buffs. I did a whole show on this. Please go back to the show where I discussed this. That line has not been in the platform for longer than it's been in there. It was in there for the 70s. It got deleted by 1980, and it was added again in 2008. Kiss my libertarian ass, Andy Craig. You are lying, and you know it.
Years since the party was started in the early 70s that says we condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant. Which would seem to be a pretty uncontroversial statement to most people, you would think.
Yeah, as it would be until you start seeing the way it was weaponized. With your first 18 minutes, because we're on 18:05 of the show, proved why that got deleted. You only have yourself to blame, because when you call everyone you don't agree with a bigot, you've weaponized words that should be non-controversial. You have only yourself to blame, Mr. Craig. Blaming other people. Nice. And yes, JJ, yep, Hoppy is very feudalist, and that's why I don't like him. Again, that doesn't mean everything he said is bad. If you're not familiar with his argumentation ethics, they're great. But it's basically Christian presuppositionalism repackaged into a libertarian context. Anyone here who's into Christian apologetics will know what I'm talking about.
That was their one of their number one. It was basically their number one goal for the platform was to delete that sentence.
Fuck you. No, it wasn't. You weren't on any of those meetings. Oh my God, you're such a liar. I was at the meetings. Anyone here? JJ was at the meetings. Anyone here who was at the meetings? What was the number one goal when it came to platform tokens? It was deleting the abortion plank. Stop lying. The caucus was extremely, extremely divided about 3.5. My God, you're a liar.
Which is telling.
It's telling because it's a messaging
it's
thing.
It's telling
that
because
is
you're
not
a liar.
Actually advocating a policy. It's just stating a value. So if
right. That's the problem. I'm going to repeat what Spike Cohen said. If you were a marginalized person that was actually suffering at the hands of a bigot, an actual bigot, who would you want beside you? Somebody who just said the way they felt, I condemn this as irrational and repugnant. Or would you want somebody next to you that said, I will defend you? I would rather have the person who would tell me what they would do rather than what they felt. Oh, and thank you, Justin. Thank you.
go after it. you're telling people who you are.
And there is this explanatory, they sent out an issue, their orders, their script to all their followers that everybody is. Leaked and obtained, and there's an explanation of why they're doing that, and it's basically we need to delete this to send a signal, except they didn't use signal because anything they don't like they say is virtue signaling, but this is, I guess, vice signaling. We need to send a message that this party welcomes people who would be offended by this statement, who would be put off by it.
Okay, does anyone have the floor plan in front of, I think I might have it still saved. I don't think that is what was said. Let me look in my drive. See, I'm such a disobedient Mises person that I had my own reasons and I didn't follow the reasons put forth in some floor plan. So I couldn't even really tell you definitely what it said. So I want to look it up. I want to see if I can find it. Anyone have the Mises floor plan? It was leaked, as he just said. I don't even think I have it saved. That's how much I really paid attention to that. I'm a bad Mises thrall. Bad. Does anyone have it? Does anyone have our orders? I'm looking through my shared folders. I think I deleted it. That's how much I cared. I still have stuff from my removal, but I don't have stuff from the convention. Bad. Let me see in my email box. JJ, you have it, don't you? I'm looking for it in my email box. I'm such a bad Mises thrall, I can't even find my orders. There's motions. What's this? Is this it? Hold on. No, that's the platform committee report. Damn it. And Matt, you're a bad thrall too. You didn't even read it? No, somebody asked me for the platform report. Damn it. I don't even have it. Well, somebody send me the link if you can find it. Well, we can deal with this in another show when somebody actually sends me the marching orders that I didn't pay. The Mises floor plan. Do you have a link to that, JJ? Because I want to see if what he said is correct about the rationale. Because I never paid attention to it, to be honest with you. But that wasn't the rationale that was expressed in the meetings. But I'd like to see what was in writing before calling him another liar. Because, when I call people a liar, I'm sure of it before I do. All right, that'll be for another show. Somebody send me the Mises floor plan. Yeah, send me the copy, please, JJ. If you could send it to my email. Well, and about removing Whitney, JJ will attest that I was yelling in the floor team chat, no, bad idea, don't, No, I just need the floor plan. He's talking about the rationale for allegedly wanting to delete 3.5. I wasn't even sure that the caucus officially endorsed deleting 3.5. I thought that was left up to individual conscience, but I honestly don't recall. So I want to wait to see the document. Let's continue. We're going to go up to 20 minutes in the show, and we're going to have part 2 and part 3. This is going to be a long one.
Statement. And I don't know how much clearer you can put that, because the only person who doesn't think bigotry should be opposed are bigots.
No. Let's unpack this. In isolation, what you said is correct. The only people who don't think bigotry should be opposed. Again, opposed is a loaded term. Do you mean by the government? do you mean by individuals? If you mean by the government, libertarians don't think bigotry should be opposed. If you mean by individuals, all decent people believe bigotry should be opposed. So that talked about the definition of the word oppose. Let's talk about the definition of the word bigotry. And that's where the problem was. Because as you guys have spent the past 19 minutes showing, you don't even understand what that word means. So fuck off.
There's one thing that you mentioned earlier. I think it was you, Joseph. It's a phenomenon I've noticed. And that is state libertarian parties. Especially on Twitter. I honestly have this game, and I'm sorry because I'm going to talk about how much I make fun of libertarians on Twitter. Forgive me for this sin. But state libertarian parties on Twitter put out some of the most insane shit that I've ever seen. And it's like this recurring joke we have almost, like the state libertarians are at it again. And you talked about some of the structural reason why that might be, but can you elaborate on, number one?
Okay, it seems like he's going to now get into not being very happy that state parties have autonomy. We're going to stop here because it seems like this is going to go into a whole other subject. So we're stopping at 19 minutes and 45 seconds. We're going to get through this whole thing before we go on to anything else. So tomorrow night or maybe tomorrow afternoon, maybe I'll do a Liberty Boudoir where we'll go through another 20 minutes of this because there's 32 minutes left. But in the meantime, if someone can send me the Mises floor plan because I considered it so important that I didn't even save it. Please forgive me, Michael Heiss, for I have sinned. I've sinned against the ginger Jesus. I hope he doesn't strike me down with a thunderbolt. Now I think I gotta follow Jeremiah Johnson so I can mock him ruthlessly on Twitter. Anyway, that's going to be it for this evening because, a little bit just slid down the side. So I've got another tiny sip. Because I definitely need more wine. So let's go back here to the primary screen. If y'all have any questions, anything you want to discuss in the last 5 minutes before we go, I'm going to go pass out after this from too much wine, as it were. I've still got minutes to do, but if you've all been following the list, I've been doing a lot of minutes corrections, and I'm freaking tired. I'm tired. So I'm just giving it a few minutes, and also for last minute super chats because I am a complete YouTube whore. Otherwise, we will probably see you tomorrow. I'm not going to be doing a show tomorrow night. And the reason being is because Angela McArdle is on Tim Pool tomorrow night, and I do not want to draw any viewers away from that. And tomorrow night or tomorrow during the day, I'll show everyone the design that Justin O'Donnell sent over to me. But so tomorrow night, unless it's maybe late because Tim Pool is 8 Eastern. So that's 6 Mountain. So I could still do an 8 Mountain show. So maybe we'll do another 20 minutes of this, or maybe we'll talk about Angela on Tim Pool. But I am planning on spending tomorrow night listening to Angela, but maybe in the afternoon I'll do a show. Who the heck knows? All right, that's it for this evening. Wow, this was really painful. So we've been through 20 minutes of the show, and they basically said nothing. It was Circle Jerkus Maximus. Definitely not being monetized this show. And yes, Angela requests a bunch of super chats with the LP website link tomorrow. Actually, not just the LP website, lp.org/join. So we get some new members. Alrighty, y'all. I hope you have an awesome night, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not the